Hey guys, thanks for joining me. My new TicWatch Pro 3 just arrived, and as you may or may not know, I'll put a link to it up here. I did post a video about the Versa 3 from Fitbit just about 2 weeks ago or so, and the results were not great. It's a very good watch, but there was a deal breaker for me regarding the ability to store your own music directly locally on the watch, and so that was a big disappointment for me on the Versa 3, and that is why this guy is going to go back in the next few days. So in the meantime, I had ordered the TicWatch Pro 3, which I think will be a more than suitable replacement for what I had hoped to get out of the Versa 3. So, did I make the right decision? Was it worth spending a little more money to upgrade, I guess we'll call it, on the TicWatch Pro 3? I guess we're going to find out. All right, so the first thing we got to do is get it out of the box. I'm not a big fan of doing just strictly unboxing videos, so we'll just kind of blow through this and make sure we know at least what comes in the box. Got a little quick guide here, multi-page thing, front and back. All right, and there's the watch. You can see it's pretty good size. You can kind of compare it and see how much larger the watch face is as compared to the Versa 3. It is a little bit bigger on the wrist. So that's going to be one thing that's maybe a little bit of a downside for me, but I think I can live with it. So we're going to find out. Just see what's in here. So it looks like really all you get in the box is a little bit of paperwork. You get the little charge cable that's proprietary for this. And yeah, so we are going to find out what the pros and cons are of this watch and kind of walk through not just the features of the watch, but also take a look at some of the software that the watch manufacturer also provides, because that's an important part of the watch, is how good is the software integration to your phone. So we'll take a look at all that. I'm going to charge this thing up, and it's going to be, probably 5 or 6 days before I get back, and we will take a look at what the results are and whether or not I made the right decision. All right. I have had about a week to work with this watch as a daily wear and really kind of get to know the ins and outs of it, I think. It's very much kind of like looking at the difference between PC and Mac and Android and iPhone. With PC and Android, you get virtually unlimited customizability. You can get in there and tinker with all kinds of things, and sometimes the software experience is not quite as refined, but it's very similar. And I will say that in this, while there's a lot to like about this watch, the software user experience is not as polished. So there are lots of promo videos. And by the way, this is not designed as a promo video because this is not sponsored in any way. And I think you'll be surprised with my conclusion at the end. But you should probably go watch at least another video or two on the TicWatch Pro 3 if you're serious about pursuing this. They'll get into some of the fancy B-roll. They may get into the tech specs a little bit more heavy than I did. I really just want to give you my honest opinions on it. So I ordered this directly from Mavoi's website, mavoy.com. It's shipped from China. It arrived via DHL about 10 days after I ordered it. So it's not like ordering it from Amazon. You're going to get it in 2 days, unless you do order it from Amazon, which I assume is an option. It's just not the way that I went. I was able to get this with a promo code, which I will also leave in the description below. That got me like 5 or 10% off. So instead of paying $2.99 for this, which is typically what this thing costs, I paid like I want to say $2.80. So I think I got 20 bucks off, and some of that was for signing up for an account, and the other was for using a promo code. So if you're interested in that, feel free to use the promo code. I think it's an elegant design. I think it looks very good. Again, I'm not going to give you a fancy B-roll on this. You can get that from other videos. But you kind of get a sense. I'm 5'10". I weigh about 195 pounds. You get a sense for how big this is on my wrist. I'm a pretty average sized guy. It is a large watch. I think it's 44 millimeters, I want to say. But it's not overly large. I do find this faux leather with the stitching on the side to be very comfortable. It's pretty convincing, and I don't have to worry about changing bands right out of the box if I want to go get it wet. And it actually is very comfortable on the wrist. I was worried that it was going to feel kind of clunky and heavy, and I have to say I don't really have that impression. It doesn't really feel that way to me. Now, so this is about $50 to $70, depending on whether you get the discounts, more than the Versa 3. And so for that, you get the ability, you get onboard GPS like the Versa 3. You get the full Wear OS with the whole Google Wear OS ecosystem. So you get access to a bunch of apps. The Fitbit, you just really are kind of relegated to using Fitbit apps. There are a couple third-party apps out there, but they're not, it's not a robust app market by any stretch. It's very, very limited. So this does have onboard GPS. The nice thing is unlike the Fitbit Versa 3, which had onboard GPS, you couldn't conserve battery life and use the phone's GPS if you happen to have the phone with you. With this one, you can. You simply use the Wear OS version of the exercise tracking, say for jogging or something, and Wear OS assumes you're going to use the phone's GPS. At least it did in my test. So I could get away with using my phone GPS and thereby preserve battery life a little bit more on this. Now, they claim you'll get 3 days of battery life out of this normal use. And if you wanted to use what they call essential mode, you'll get 45 days. Now, but my real world, what is normal for me anyway, which is occasional GPS, not very much, and occasional music, and again, not very much. I'm just not using essential mode. I'm using it in the standard mode, and I'm not doing a ton of interaction with the apps, and I'm still only getting, I'm like down at 10 or 15% after 2 days. So I might be able to squeeze a third day in there, but that's really pushing it. And I suspect that will be a similar experience for most people. There is a built-in speaker on this, and there is on the Fitbit 3 as well. Now, when you set alarms on here, you can tell it, I want to use vibration on the wrist, and I want an audible chime, or I want one or the other. So you can configure that completely customizable on this watch. On the Fitbit, you set an alarm and it just buzzes your wrist. It's called a silent alarm. There's no way to, at least at this point, unless Fitbit updates it, there's no way to get the audible chime, which would be nice to have that option. I actually do like that on this watch. Anyway, those are kind of my basic comments on how this compares. Let's go and look at the actual screens and just kind of flip through and you can get a feel for how the watch works. And we'll look at the apps on the phone as well and compare that to the Fitbit app, and you kind of get a feel for what those differences are. Let's take a look at the TicWatch Pro 3. It's got two buttons on the right side. The top one is the power button. It's the wake up button. You can get a single press or a long press, and you can program what it does with the long press. And you can do the same thing with the bottom button, which is sort of the kind of accessory button. Take a look and see if you can make this out. If I tilt the watch just a little bit, you can maybe make out that little TFT display, and that's what's kind of running all the time for power savings. To wake up the watch, you just press the top right button and you can get the watch face. If you want to change the watch face, tap and hold, and you can switch it to whatever watch face that you like. It's very easy. And if you want to go find additional watch faces, just scroll over and say see more watch faces, and now you can scroll through a bunch of watch faces. You can do this from the Mobvoi app and also the Wear OS app as well. So once the watch face is active, if I single press again on the top right, it brings up my app list. All of the apps that are on here, they're all virtually preloaded except for the one that you saw there, the Wear Media. I added that one. All of the Tic apps kind of fall to the top. There's a variety of things, Pulse, Tic Sleep. If you want to check your overall health, you can go to Tic Health. Tic Exercise is where you can click that and go into the variety of exercise modes that the TicWatch provides. I wish you had a way to change the order of these, because I would use mountaineering, which is my equivalent of hiking, a lot, and I would prefer it not be at the bottom of the list, but it doesn't look like there's a way, at least at this point, to change the order on the watch of those particular things. You swipe from left to right to go back. If you were to go back to the clock face, for example, swipe from the top down, you can very quickly get into settings. There's a separate app for settings as well, but this gets you into the same thing. So I can change how the display is configured, connectivity. I can set it up to connect to my Wi-Fi. I can go into the Google Play Store here. One of the cool things is, because this is Wear OS, you can load something like Google Maps onto here, and you can have basically turn-by-turn instructions right on your wrist if you so choose. And I thought that was pretty cool. One of the things that happens is by default, when you bring your wrist up, the backlight comes on and helps you see that little TFT display if you're just looking for a quick time check. So if I were to move that, you see the backlight comes on. So that's going to come on all the time when you're moving, or when you're sleeping, if you're moving around. And sometimes that light at night is pretty bright. So I wanted a way to turn that off. The way to do that is to come into this little swipe down menu and put it in theater mode. When you put it in theater mode, the backlight won't come on until you press the power button again. So that's pretty nice. Anyway, so a couple other things you can see. It's pretty snappy moving through the menus. You can go enable Google Pay if you want. But if you use Google Pay, it requires you to put a PIN. What's weird about that is that when it prompts you for a PIN, I'll put the picture up here, it just shows you the PIN prompt with a line. Now, you have to tap the screen again in order to bring up the keypad entry. So I'm not sure why that is. Why do I have to tap the screen a second time in order to get the keypad entry? Anytime the PIN is required, it should just open up to the keypad. So both of these buttons, as I mentioned, are configurable as to what happens when you long press them. So by default, the Google Assistant is set up, and that's currently what's set up on it right now with a long press. So let's take a look at how well that works. What's the population of the United States?
In 2019, the population of the United States of America was 328,239,523.
So you can see it said, sorry, there is a problem, and that actually is not an uncommon occurrence, although it did give me the answer I asked for. So I'm not sure why that does that. If I put the same query on my phone, it works just fine. So let's try that again. What's the capital of Switzerland?
Bern. According to Swiss Info, why is Bern the capital of Switzerland? Many people are surprised when they hear that pretty little Bern is the Swiss capital.
So that's pretty good. I mean, it works, I would say, most of the time, but sometimes you get that little quirk. You can configure the bottom one as well. I haven't changed the default, though originally I had set it to open up the Tic Exercise app so I could quickly get into the exercise mode that I wanted to. In this case, it's whatever the default was because I had recently reset the watch. But this is a quick way to get into essential mode or restart the watch if you want. I have no idea what this speaker draining thing is. I haven't tried it. I think it's just for draining the battery quickly. I don't know why you'd want to do that. So I'm not sure why it's there, and I'm not sure why it's at the top of the list. So swipe that way. If we swipe up from the bottom, it will post your notifications, which is cool. And you can dismiss those if you want. If you swipe from the right to the left, it'll open up your tiles, which are completely configurable. I haven't completely set all this up, so you can put your tiles in there, whatever you want, with your calendar, the weather, whatever makes sense for you. So it's pretty handy. If I swipe in from this direction, it goes to the Google Assistant the same way the long press here does. So if you wanted to use the long press for something else, you can still get into the Google Assistant very easily here and use it however you want to use it. So very highly configurable. Let's take a look at the app. With the TicWatch Pro, you need both the MobVoy app and the Wear OS app. If you look at the Wear OS app, it really just kind of shows you watch faces. It gives you the ability to configure tiles and things like that. But generally speaking, you don't really need to use the Wear OS app on your phone. You would just use the MobVoy app to control the things that you want to control on the phone. So if I go look at the MobVoy app, you can see it gives you kind of a similar outlook as what you might expect with the Fitbit, which we'll look at that in a minute and compare because they're very similar. You can go into your step counts and it shows the various plots. All of the plots, though, are not interactive in any way. So if I touch on them, they don't do anything, right? So they're just static plots. If I scroll down here, I can click on the exercise, and that will open up the exercise page for a particular day, right? And now I've got down here the variety of things, heart rate, my average speed for this exercise that I recorded, my step length, frequency, and if I use GPS for that, it'll list the GPS. Now again, none of these are interactive in any way. Now I can share this data. I've heard some people say, I wish you could share this data. Well, you can. I'm not sure why they didn't realize that you could not. You just click the share button here. You can choose whether to share just raw data or actual, including your route as well. But if you share it, you can choose which app you want to share it to. So that's all there. Kind of works very similar to the Fitbit app. So here's the Fitbit app. Again, it shows me similar kinds of data, just presents it a little bit differently. If I go into my step counts, I can pull up plots, and you can see the cursors are interactive in a way that they are not on the Mobvoi app. If I go down to exercise, and by the way, I can click the exercise panel anywhere in the Fitbit app. If I didn't do exercise for a particular day on the Mobvoi app, there is nothing there to click, it won't respond. So if I've done any exercise at all on the Fitbit, I can just click that panel and it will bring me up to all the multiple days that I've tracked exercise within that panel. So I don't have to be on a specific day where I had exercise. That's something that I like. Now in this case, again, unlike the Mobvoi app, I can click on the map and it brings up a larger version of the map. Now if once I'm in there, I can't really do anything with it, but I can look at heart zones and pace, which if you're a serious runner, these are things that are going to be really good information for you. You can also get in to look at your changes in elevation and heart rate. The thing I wanted to point out here is that just the app experience is just a little bit more refined than Mobvoi, but I think the Mobvoi app does get the job done. It's just that the Fitbit app has been around a little bit longer and it's a more mature piece of code. So, take that, however you want to take it. So anyway, that's kind of how the differences are in the app. Let's look at one more thing. I've got the Wear Media and the Nav Music. These are two apps that I found there's probably more than this, but these are the ones that I found that you can use to load music to the TicWatch Pro 3. Again, the experience on these apps, I'm not going to get into that's beyond the scope, but they're a little bit rough, they're a little bit cumbersome, but they do get the job done, and presumably you're not necessarily moving new music to your watch every single day. It's probably something you only do on occasion. Anyway, so that's a look at the apps and how the watch works. So there's kind of a lot of pros and there's a few cons. Now this is a more expensive watch. As I mentioned, it's anywhere from $50 to $70 more expensive than the Fitbit Versa, but it does give me the ability to store music locally, and that's kind of a big deal for me. Since I got this watch, I have kind of decided that I don't think I really require GPS anymore. And I was fully prepared to go ahead and just keep the watch because I do like the watch. But then Prime Days, Amazon Prime Days happened, and Fitbit Versa 2, which does not have the onboard GPS, but does have the ability to store local music, went on sale for $130. So I went back to the Fitbit Versa 2. But if you're in the market for a full-featured kind of Wear OS alternative to the Galaxy Watch, I really think the TicWatch Pro 3 is a really good option. You just be prepared. You're going to have to charge it every couple of days most likely, and as long as you can work that into your routine flow, it's probably not a big deal. So I am actually going to send this back. I didn't think I was going to say that when I started out the week playing with this watch, because it is a cool watch. So I communicated to Mobvoi and told them I was interested in returning the watch, and they basically said, tell us why. They actually offered me a discount. They said, will you keep it if we give you 20% off as a credit back? Which I was surprised. I almost took that deal, but I'd already decided to go with this one. And then they said, all right, well, click on this link from your computer and submit a claim that you want to return the watch. Take pictures of the watch to prove to us, along with the packaging, that you've got all of the original packaging. So if you do go the route of the TicWatch Pro 3, I would recommend that you hang on to the original packaging, at least for the first 30 days, and make sure you're going to keep it, and make sure you take good care of it and you don't scratch it up or anything, because I have the feeling that they will not accept anything but a pristine, like new watch back, which is understandable. I can't really fault them for that. The next communique I expect from them should be instructions on how to return the watch, and I'll let you know how that experience was as well. So anyway, hopefully this information has been helpful for whatever direction you're going to go on your smartwatch journey. And I appreciate you joining me for this video if you stuck in for the very end. And if you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. If there was any useful information in here at all, please consider clicking that thumbs up button. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm. And that's about all I got for you. So hopefully we'll see you in the next one. And until then, have fun out there.